You guys should just remove Mending. It would be funny. People would lose their minds. Oh, hey, Jeb. It's good to see you around. You seem to be very active on Blue Sky, which is really good. I think there needs to be a lot more communication from the Mojang developers and the player base, because there seems to be a big disconnect, especially with something that's going on and has been going on in the last 3 weeks. Okay, so if you've been following the channel for the last several months, you would know that I'm starting to get really into the survival aspect of Minecraft again. Yeah, I know. I'm playing survival, which I feel is kind of pertinent because there's a lot of debate going on right now about Mending and anvils. Hi Jeb, have you ever considered removing or adjusting the anvil level cap? It can feel a bit punishing in late game, so I was wondering if there are any plans around that. With which Jeb replies, not really, but I don't know what will happen in the future. The purpose of the cap is that all items are intended to be impermanent. Mending is a different issue. This discussion goes on for a long time, and I'll be here for hours if I was going to read all of that to you, so I'll leave the link of the thread in the description. Okay, so let's first of all talk about progression in Minecraft, because it's really important to understand what players normally do when they join a world, and that is they trap a bunch of villagers. And so let's do that. Now granted, this is not something that everyone does, but it's the quickest and easiest way of getting the best items in the game. I already have a couple of lecterns here. This is perfect. This is actually a really good village. You have your lecterns and you just spam them down until you get the trade that you want. We're just gonna keep on going here. Power 4, not bad, but we're not looking for power 4 because that can be obtained in other means. We're trying to get the one trade that everyone does this for. Looting 3. See, there are some trades here that are good, but you can normally get them through enchantment tables, which you obviously use to reduce the cost on an anvil in the early stage of the game. But Mending is the one trade that applies to every single equipment with durability, which is why everyone does this. We'll see how long this axe lasts, and that will be our counter for how many times I've replaced this lectern. I almost replaced this lectern because it took so long. We finally have Mending for 12 emeralds, which is a good price, and this axe is down to 167 out of 250, so 80 tries to get this thing. Bit of sugarcane over here. So now this guy is a Mending villager. Then what happens is this guy gets infected, you heal him, his trades become 1. You may recognize this machine over here. Would have consistently duped the tripwire hooks, which you then trade with Fletchers right here. Alternatively, any farm allows you to mass produce sticks, and then you RNG the heck out of a villager to get the trades you need, which then becomes infinitely worse the more enchantments Mojang adds to the game. Here's your anvil. I mean, no one does this, but I'm gonna put Mending on an iron pickaxe. And now this tool is essentially unbreakable. Here is the problem though. Jeb has just openly admitted to us that the Mojang philosophy for the game is that all items are intended to be impermanent. First of all, I'm going to put Mending on this thing. There is a far more optimal way to do this, but I want to hit the anvil cap. The moment you have all these villagers in a line, a perfect farming system, you essentially have infinite levels, which is exactly why this anvil cap exists. It is to prevent the application of all these levels onto any singular tool. So let's assume I have 100 levels. Now I'm going to apply Sharpness 5, Fire Respect 2, Knockback 2, Looting 3, Sweeping Edge 3, and then if I try to put Unbreaking on it, it says too expensive. And that is because if I try to do it here, it would cost me 66 freaking levels. The cost to repair exponentially increases. Okay, so not everyone obviously uses all of these enchantments. Sometimes knockback 2 is not a good thing. There are optimal strategies to minimize the amount of levels required, so this is a Minecraft enchantment calculator. Let's say you have no enchantments on the sword, and you want to apply sharpness, fire respect, knockback, looting, mending, sweeping edge, unbreaking. Press calculate, and there is your enchantment sequence, which necessitates combining books and then applying them to the sword immediately after, with a total of only 49 levels required. So let's do this again. Fire respect 2, combine the books, looting on the left, knockback 2 on the right. If you decide to reverse them, it actually increases the cost, so you don't want to do that. There are intrinsic values attached to each enchantment. Combine these two, sharpness and mending. Once again, if you reverse it, you've got an enchantment cost of 5. Combine the sword with the book, reducing the number of times you enchant the sword itself. And finally, sweeping edge with unbreaking, and then you combine that with the sword. That's only costing you 17 levels. And look at that, we've only used 49 levels. And now this sword is completely maxed out with all the effort of having to do all this, RNGing the heck out of a lectern. If the argument is that this sword is supposed to be impermanent, I don't get it. Gonna bring this guy around. Believe there's a brewing stand in here. Clerics also trade you bottles of enchanting, so you can also just spam this all you want. So going back to Jeb's argument here, the purpose of the anvil cap is that all items are intended to be impermanent. I don't understand where this comes from. I don't think any items in Minecraft are don't tend to be impermanent. At least not anymore. Mending has become so ingrained that the traditional use of repairing things on an anvil, that does not happen anymore. Even the level cap, since its only effect on the game is forcing combining enchantments in specific orders, it never prevents maxed out gear. The idea of going through the enchanting phase of the game is just that depressing. Gear cannot feel impermanent like that. Mojang may be reconsidering how all of this operates. They're not gonna remove it, right? Without mending, yes, you're basically losing all your items. I also simply do not buy this whole argument, given that armor trims have just been introduced in the game about a couple of years ago, which simply put adds a very unique armor personality. They're also absurdly expensive to duplicate. If you spend all your resources doing this to your armor, at what point does that align with the philosophy of your stuff should not be permanent? If there's any hint that Mojang might be nerfing mending or the way you obtain it, thereby making all your stuff less permanent, there is no way I'm just gonna be sitting here breaking this lectern, placing it down constantly to try to get the enchantment that I want. Especially since there are so many enchantments now in the game, the worse this entire RNG system's gonna be. Enchanting is so tedious and luck-based that people stop playing the game when they die and lose their amazing gear, because the idea of going through the enchanting phase of the game is just that depressing. Small idea. Enchantment tables are currently influenced by basically nothing, but they are powered by bookshelves, which will allow them to max out their enchantments. Enchantment tables are still kind of useful by limiting the amount of times that you need to rely on villagers, but they are so RNG based as well. So you've got looting here. Yep, and so you just grindstone this. Sharpness 3, absolutely not. Grindstone remove. Try again. Sweeping edge. Oh, great. Looting 3, smite 4. Now, obviously, you don't have to keep using the sword. You can use dummy items to reset this. But here's a small thought. Let's just get rid of all these bookshelves. You don't need the corner ones because they're blocked anyway. Instead, why not have chiseled bookshelves? So you place these all around here. And if you want to influence an enchantment table with certain enchantments, or even a villager perhaps, let's say I put like a Fortune 3 book inside this chiseled bookshelf. Potentially with this system, you can try to influence what enchantments there are, or a villager can give you, based on the existence or the proportionality of enchantment books inside these bookshelves. And so let's say with this Fortune 3 book inside this bookshelf, with 3 of them, this villager will be more likely to give you Fortune 3, thereby eliminating the need to have RNG based enchanting systems, or at the very least reducing it. So if this can be more controlled, I think players will be a little more accepting of tools not being permanent. I mean, I still hate it. They shouldn't do it. Back in 2023, Mojang released this Trade Rebalance Experimental Data Pack, and this attempted to address these problems, but I don't think they were that good. So for example, let's go to a swamp biome. It did attempt to make trading more fun and less RNG based, somewhat forcing players to sort of explore other biomes in the world. For example, let's say I had a villager over here and I place a lectern right next to them. So the only way to get mending from a villager here is to essentially max out a swamp villager. There's our mending book. Once you've done that, you can transport this swamp villager all the way back to your base. Now that can be seen as relatively annoying, but once you've got your setup done, it doesn't really matter. That was one way Mojang tried to address this problem. So clearly it is currently on their minds. Tool impermanence. They also have minecarts and redstone. I don't know what they're thinking about right now. Okay, so this video has gone on for quite some time, but quite obviously the game philosophy has changed. The tools and equipment we have on us is our identifier of progress, and losing it means we lose all the progress up to this point. We rely on fully enchanted mending gear to feel comfortable developing projects at a grand scale, meaning we don't exactly have the time investment, especially once we die, to have to grind for tools once again, especially with how much RNG is inherent in the system at the moment. Do let me know what you guys think about all this. I don't know how actively Mojang are planning right now with the Anvil camp, with the mending stuff. It's really good that Jeb is communicating with us online. It does make us feel more connected with the development process of the game, and it's really good to see that. The entire enchantment system is basically broken in this game.